I'll call the meeting in the McHenry County Zoning Board of Appeals to order. This hearing is the second continuation of the January 30th, 2025 hearing on petition Z25-0012, formerly known as 2024-055. Today's hearing date, time, and location were announced on the record at the last hearing date of March 27, 2025. Therefore, notice of publication, certified mail, and posting were not required for today's continuation. When we left the last hearing, the only items left that we needed to accomplish in our hearing was the staff report, closing testimony by the objector, and then by the petitioner. So we'll start today with testimony on the part of the staff with Anna Kurtzman.
Good afternoon. As indicated, my name is Anna Kurtzman. I am a senior planner here at McHenry County. We have before us today petition number 2024-055. There should be a Z number associated with that, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. Anyway, so the subject property is currently zoned A1. It is entirely surrounded by A1 properties. There is the community of Heartland to the west near the railroad tracks. There's the nursing home, the highway department, the other governmental agencies that are located in the proximity of this property. To the north of the road there is predominantly agriculturally used properties. There are some additional single family in the area. The future land use designation is agriculture. The applicant has provided us with a revised site plan. I will let the applicant describe the revisions and their closing statements here. One of the criteria for a food processing with slaughter is that the property, that the buildings, all functions of the conditional use permit be at least 500 feet from any residential zoned property. There is no residential zoned property within that 500 feet. And also that there'd be no residents in the ag zoning district within 500 feet. And the applicant has provided this graphic demonstrating compliance with that requirement. The standards that the zoning board will need to use this afternoon are your traditional conditional use standards. In addition, you will need to determine if 16.56.030 HH, which is food processing with animal slaughter, if these 5 items have been met. Staff does offer 6 different conditions. First one is that the conditional use shall expire 10 years from the date of approval by the McHenry County Board. Second one is that the conditional use shall substantially conform to the official site plan prepared by Gillespie Design Group dated April 11th, 2025. And that is that revised one that I just showed you a few moments ago. 3.
What was the date again on that?
April 11th, 2025.
Thank you.
3, within 6 months of county board approval, the applicant shall submit a county highway access permit application to the county's Division of Transportation. And I just realized there's a typo, that there's no 2 in the wording there. 4, within 6 months of county board approval, the applicant shall submit a plat of dedication to the county's Division of Transportation dedicating frontage along Nelson Road to the county. 5, within 1 year of county board approval, the applicant shall submit a building permit, including an application for stormwater management to the county's Planning and Development Department. And 6, all other federal, state, and local laws shall be met. That concludes my presentation.
If any members of the board have questions of staff, we'll start down on my left. Mr. Cozen, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
Ms. Donner?
I do not.
Mr. Eldridge?
Just a quick clarification. I believe it is the Division of Transportation's policy that they would not consider the access permit application unless they had received either at the same time or previously the plat of dedication. Is that correct?
That's why it's the same 6-month timeframe.
Yeah.
So, yes, you are correct.
Okay, Ms. Gardner, any
No
questions? Mr. Schnabel?
No questions.
Mr. Kern?
No questions.
Okay. I have no questions. So at this point, we will move on to closing statements by, we will let the petitioner have the last word. So the objector, Mr. Kuda, on behalf of the township, you can go ahead and give your closing statement.
Are you using that 3-minute timer again?
No, not for this.
Okay, and Mr. Kuda, if you wouldn't mind using the microphone, please.
You want me to just from here, is that okay?
Yes,
Or do you want me to
that's fine,
stand up?
as long as you speak into the microphone.
Okay. Get my reading glasses on.
And actually, if you keep that in the stand, staff says it works better than holding it as far as picking it up. Yeah, they'll be able to pick you up fine.
Okay. I am here this afternoon representing Heartland Township and its supervisor, Charlie Cruzy. Heartland Township objects to the proposed conditional use requested by the petitioner. The McHenry County Unified Development Ordinance allows a food processing plant to be located within property zone A1 Agricultural District as a conditional use. In order to obtain a conditional use, a petitioner must demonstrate it is able to meet the general standards found in section 16-26-40E and the specific standards for a food processing plant set forth in section 1656.030HH of the Unified Development Ordinance. Heartland Township does not believe petitioner has adequately addressed the general standards 2, 4, 5, and 9. Other than a general statement that petitioner meets those particular standards, it has offered no proof that the operation of a slaughterhouse on Nelson Road will not endanger the public health, comfort, or general welfare of the residents who live within the near vicinity of the proposed use. Nor has it shown how the proposed use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the area, or that it won't diminish or impair property values of its neighbors. Other than the infrequent slaughter of 4-H animals, almost all of petitioner's production is for out-of-county businesses. In fact, when questioned by a zoning board member that steers really aren't your business, just an accommodation to local farmers, Mr. Olagu replied, correct, only 5 steers. The public interest of Heartland Township residents is not served by this proposed use. One of the specific standards and requirements of Section HH is that live animals may be held on site for no more than 24 hours. At the January 30th hearing, Mr. Olagu could not unequivocally state that he would be able to meet this standard. In fact, the 24-hour rule was the most discussed issue at the January 30th hearing and also at the beginning of the March 27th hearing date. There were several comments by the petitioner that perhaps the 24-hour rule only applied to animals held within the inside holding pens and not outside the slaughterhouse. It was difficult to pin down the petitioner. At one point, his own attorney stated, I think his answer is unclear. Remember, it is the burden of the petitioner to prove he can meet all of the ordinance requirements for conditional use and not the burden of the objectors to disprove them. Petitioner's new attorney addressed this issue at the March 27th hearing. He stated that the Illinois Right to Farm Act subjects neighbors to inconvenience and discomfort, the possibility of injury to property or health arising from normal accepted agricultural practices and operations, and therefore petitioner could allow animals on site greater than 24 hours. In fact, the Right to Farm Act isn't even the correct name of the statute. The name of the statute is the Farm Nuisance Act, and its pertinent section states that, quote, "No farm or any of its appurtenances shall be or become a private or public nuisance because of any changed conditions in the surrounding area occurring after the farm has been in operation for more than 1 year, when such farm was not a nuisance at the time it began operation, provided that the provisions of this section shall not apply whenever a nuisance results from the negligent or improper operation of any farm or its appurtenances." This statute does not grant carte blanche rights to any person or entity to conduct whatever type of farming operation it desires, regardless of the consequences to the neighbors. It simply states that if you've been operating for at least 1 year and there's a change condition in the surrounding area, for example, a new family moves in, and the operation was not a nuisance prior to that, then it cannot be considered a nuisance now. The opposite is occurring here. The slaughterhouse is moving into an established mixed-use community. It has not been in operation on Nelson Road for at least 1 year. I have a copy of the Farm Nuisance Act, which I'll hand out to everyone after I'm done with my remarks. A food processing plant which anticipates slaughtering up to 500 animals per week is not a mom-and-pop operation. By Mr. Olagu's own admission, almost all the slaughtered livestock comes from out of county, and almost none of the finished product is sold to McHenry County residents or businesses. From January 1st, 2019 through March 31st, 2023, Olagu Farms Meatpacking, Inc. was cited over 30 times for violations at its former slaughterhouse. Violations range from improper adequate record keeping to holding contaminated carcasses. While petitioner repeatedly states that he will comply with the applicable state and federal rules and regulation, history indicates he was unable to do so in the past. The Unified Development Ordinance provides that as a matter of right and without a conditional use permit, petitioner could operate his proposed plant on property zoned industrial. At the January 30th hearing, Mr. Olagu admitted that he had never even looked at parcels that are zoned industrial for his new business. Had he done so and purchased an industrial zone property, none of us would have to be here today. Petitioner requests that all their 8.28 acre parcel be granted a conditional use for a slaughterhouse. The livestock will not be slaughtered within which will not be slaughtered within the 24 hours are not part of a separate farming operation. They're an integral part of the proposed slaughterhouse business. By petitioner's own admission, those live grazing sheep who arrive on Monday may be granted a few days reprieve only to be processed into lamb chops 2 or 3 days later. They are the raw material which will be converted to edible food products as part of the slaughterhouse operation. To argue that those animals are not covered by the Section 8HH requirement that all live animals be held on site for no more than 24 hours is incomprehensible. They will be fed, held, slaughtered, and processed on the land which is subject to a conditional use. If petitioner cannot meet the 24-hour requirement, then they should never file their petition. Under all of these circumstances, Heartland Township respectfully requests that the petition for conditional use requested by Olagu Farms and Meatpacking be denied. Thank you. And I'll just take a second here to hand out these, a copy of the Farm Nuisance Act.
Okay, then we'll turn it over to the petitioner for your closing statement.
Thank you for your time. For the record, Tyler Wilkie on behalf of Olagu Farm Meats. Sorry, I think that this petition has been belabored before this board, and I wish not to continue to pile on in that way. I believe we've met the conditional use standards under 1620-40E, and also have had great lengths and discussion 1656-30HH, those for food processing with animal slaughter. And I think that the petitioner, both through their testimony and through their submitted evidence, has met those requirements. But if I may briefly, just in a reply to Mr. Kuda, condition 2 is the conditional use compatible with the existing or planned future development of the area? And our argument is that it is. That area is, under the 2030 plan, supposed to be agricultural. This use is an A1C conditional use and would meet that requirement. Concerning if the use is injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the area, we don't believe so. Based on the testimony and the documents provided, the lot size, and the design and control of odor, noise, and waste, we don't think that there will be an impact to the neighbors' use and enjoyment of their property. And as our traffic engineer had stated last time on the record, that there's no significant increase in traffic to the site based on the proposed use. Concerning the diminishment of or impairing the property value in the area, again, we would put forth to the board that this use is consistent based on the design of the building and the placement of the building on the property as it exists now. And then finally, regarding 9, will the conditional use be reasonably in the interest in public welfare? And again, we put forth yes. This is a local farm meat processing plant that at the moment does process many lambs from out of county and does make sales out of county. And Mr. Alage has stated that on the record. The other part of that is without a processing plant in the area, Mr. Kuda made mention to these beefs raised by local producers, without the opportunity and a place to go to, of course, those beefs are going to leave the county and go out of county to get processed. There is no longer the ability for the Alages to process in Lawrence anymore, and this would replace that plant which was in existence. Then concerning HH, the board has heard much testimony and much discussion concerning HH. We've put forth to the board a design that has a placement that there's no residential structure or zoning within the 500 feet of the proposed plant. As concerning the live animals may be held on the site for no more than 24 hours. We talked at great lengths on March 27th concerning this in the underlying A1 use, allowing for those farm animals, those production animals, to be on site. And that's where the reference to the Farm Nuisance Act came in. There's already existing, and it has been for over 1 year, existing animal production on that site. The only change in not the Farm Nuisance Act applying to the slaughter plant, but to that underlying use of animal production. Our design has everything indoors in that slaughtering process, so we comply with 3. And then regarding 4 and 5, that's applicable federal, state, and county rules and regulations shall apply. Mr. Alage has been in business for years now and maintains his license with the state of Illinois. And just as you would take your vehicle in for a repair or a home inspection when buying a new home, there will be things that are noted anytime you take it in, and things that should be addressed. And in the furtherance of a continuing business, there's always things that we can do better, but that doesn't mean that we don't comply and that we don't make adjustments when those are required to be made. Finally, that the facility shall satisfy all the requirements of the McHenry County Health Ordinance and applicable building codes. And we've stated that we have no problem with that from the start of our site plan review. We will have to get permits from Health Department and has been designed in such a way that it will comply with the building code. So, stating nothing further, we would request this board approve our application for a conditional use for animal slaughter and food processing.
Okay, at this time, the hearing portion of this meeting then will be closed, and we'll move on to the voting portion. of this meeting. And again, I will address that this is application 2024-055. The address is 15712 Nelson Road, Woodstock. The applicant is Eduardo and Claudia Olage. And this is a request from the A1 Agricultural District to the A1 Agricultural District with a conditional use permit for food processing with animal slaughter. We have some proposed conditions by staff, as Anna said, but I'm going to just go ahead and read them. Number one, the conditional use shall expire 10 years from the date of approval by the McHenry County Board. Number two, the conditional use shall substantially conform to the official site plan prepared by Gillespie Design Group dated April 11, 2025. Number three, within 6 months of county board approval, the applicant shall submit a county highway access permit application to the county's Division of Transportation. Number four, within 6 months of county board approval, the applicant shall submit a plat of dedication to the county's Division of Transportation, dedicating frontage along Nelson Road to the county. Number five, within 1 year of county board approval, the applicant shall submit a building permit, including an application for stormwater management to the county's Planning and Development Department. Number six, all other federal, state, and local laws shall be met. Are there any other proposed conditions?
Madam Chairman, I move acceptance of the conditions as proposed.
I'll second. Mary Donner.
It's been moved by Mr. Eldridge, second by Mary Donner, that we approve the conditions. Any discussion? Then I'll call for the vote. Mr. Eldridge?
Yes?
Ms. Gardner?
Yes.
Mr. Cozen?
Yes.
Mr. Schnabel?
Yes.
Ms. Donner?
Yes.
Mr. Kernick?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, so the conditions are approved 7-0. At this time, I would entertain a motion for approval of this request.
Madam Chairman, I propose acceptance of the petition subject to the conditions.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Mr. Eldridge, seconded by Ms. Gardner to approve this petition. Discussion, Mr. Eldridge.
Thank you. This is a proposed roughly 8,000 square foot slaughterhouse on an agricultural parcel in Heartland Township on the north side of Nelson Road. This is an unusual area in McHenry County, and calling it mixed use, I think was Mr. Kuda's term, is certainly correct in the abstract, but it is unusual in that it has an extraordinary amount of public commercial sorts of uses on the south side. There is a township facility and several county facilities, including the main facility of the Division of Transportation, the principal salt storage for the county. And I would note that salt is an extraordinarily toxic material, which the county and everyone else in this country are trying to reduce use of because it does so much harm. And the sheriff's outdoor shooting range. There is also, directly across the street from the shooting range, the county assisted living facility, Valley High. The private enterprise in the general area include a number of residences, some of the buildings have been there for a very long time, but also a number of commercial structures of largely, from a planner's perspective, obsolete for their original intention, that are being used in a variety of fashions, and a fairly substantial industrial facility. Something that I would like to take notice of is the one slaughterhouse in the county that has come before this board a number of times that has been in use as a modern slaughter facility for a considerable number of years, so we have some experience with it, which is Pork King. And we have, since I've been on the board, 3 or 4 petitions from Pork King, all of which have been approved. And on each of those occasions, I have visited Pork King, and I have never been able to smell any disagreeable smells, not only around the building, but even in their offices. You certainly can when you go into the slaughtering part of the building. I was well aware of Jones Meatpacking going back to the time I was really quite young. And I do not wonder that there were a significant number of problems with it in recent years because it was really long past what, once again, a planner would refer to as its useful life. And it probably should have been replaced years before it in fact burned down. And those were what slaughterhouses were like when I was young and even when I was middle-aged. Now I'm really old. But today, the air handling, the smell control, the offal control that environmental regulations have put on a slaughterhouse mean that to meet modern standards, you will have something that has a whole variety of technology, the details of which are well above my qualifications, that pretty much keep all the smells and difficult things, including runoff, out of the air and the water. Pork King has been a good neighbor and a good business in the county now for 25, 30 years. The new technology is even more stringent than was in place when Pork King was established. It should also be noted that Pork King is 6 or 7 times the size in terms of animal slaughter that this facility is to be. And Pork King isn't really a large commercial slaughterhouse itself. The large commercial slaughterhouses are a multiple of the size of Pork King. So this is frankly tiny compared to a major slaughtering operation. I would note that while I'm not going to take sides on the use of the Farm Nuisance Act argument, it is entirely true that if these people wanted to raise a lot of chickens or a lot of hogs, they could do so without any permitting of any kind. That would be both smellier and a threat to the water table much greater than what they are proposing to do here. I'm not at all sure they will, in fact, be able to afford to build the facility they want because restrictions by the county, state, and federal regulators are so stringent that this will be an extremely expensive building to build, and financing is going to be a challenge for them, I expect. But while I appreciate that they may sell to restaurants in Chicago, and I would note that I eat fairly frequently at restaurants outside McHenry County, and would be very happy if the meat supplied there was from McHenry County, and that there aren't enough goats apparently or lambs raised in the county to facilitate this. I am, as I have been a buyer of local beeves and local lamb and local hogs and local chickens raised by 4-H club members for my entire life, I have heard laments from children and adults in these programs that it is harder and harder without going dozens or hundreds of miles away to get them processed into meat recently, as all the old slaughterhouses have gone away. And they should have gone away because they were obsolete. I do not believe that this is an inappropriate use in this area. If you don't locate it in an area like this, I don't know what would be a better location. I don't frankly think that it is going to diminish the standard of living or the property values in the area in the slightest. And I know that of right the petitioner can do things which would be much more likely to injure those things than what he is requesting here. And for the foregoing reasons, I shall support this petition.
Ms. Gartner.
Thank you. Mr. Eldridge expanded greatly on some of the points I was going to make, so I will keep mine short. But the fact is that this is McHenry County. This is basically a farming county. Farming is our big deal in McHenry, and we try to keep it that way. And also the fact is that farms can become something less desirable than, you know, the acres of corn growing in the field. It can become a solar farm. It can become a pig farm. It can become all kinds of things that nobody wants in their backyard. I understand that, but you're living in farm country. Part of farming is raising crops, raising animals, harvesting crops, and harvesting animals. And this is part of that process. So I have no problem with that. My concern, well, let's not even go there yet. I do believe that the Olagues have responded well to all the standards. I believe that they are capable and willing and will follow everything. I believe that they will follow the conditions to a T, because the fact is, there's going to be a lot of eyes on you and a lot of ears on you and noses on you. So you're not going to have a choice if this goes through. You're going to have to really go by the book. My concern is that you will not be able to comply with the 24-hour rule in HH of getting the animals in, slaughtering them, and getting them back out within 24 hours. I don't know why that's in our ordinance, but it is. To me, it doesn't seem practical in a lot of ways, but that's in the ordinance, and you'll have to abide by it if this is approved. So with that, I'm going to say I am as yet undecided. I'm going to wait for my other colleagues to talk.
Mr. Cozen.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My presence here on the Zoning Board of Appeals represents Algonquin Township, which is the 36 square miles of probably the most urban area in McHenry County. My colleague one time reminded me that when we attend these hearings and listen to the presentations, we are to leave behind whatever it is that we experience in our particular township. It is no great revelation that there are no cows, goats, chickens, wandering around the 36 square miles of Algonquin Township. And therefore, to understand the circumstances by which brings us here, one must look to the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance of the county and its processes. That zoning ordinance applies to Algonquin Township. And in Algonquin Township, we have more automobiles than there are cows, probably not only in McHenry County, but in every northeastern Illinois county there is. And that successful arrangement of uses, however they occur through the successful administration of the zoning ordinance, the same zoning ordinance that is being applied here into Heartland Township. And so looking at the zoning map as adopted by the county, this property and the property that adjoins it to the north of Nelson Road is A1 agriculture. And under 1636.010, the zoning district describes the use of an agricultural district as follows. Properties in agricultural zoning districts are located in areas where land is used for commercial agricultural production. Owners, residents, and other users of property in adjoining those districts may be subject to inconvenience, discomfort, and the possibility of injury to property and health arising from normal and accepted agricultural practices and operations, including but not limited to noise, odors, dust, and the operation of machinery of any kind, including aircraft, the storage and disposal of manure, the application of fertilizers, soil amendments, herbicides, and pesticides. Therefore, owners, occupants, and users of property within and adjacent to these areas should be prepared to accept such inconveniences. But that doesn't mean that those uses can happen as a matter of a right. And this particular use is a conditional use, of which, again, the zoning ordinance sets out 10 standards. It also admonishes anyone that there is no presumption of approval, that each is looked at its circumstances, and it is through this hearing process, which I personally, professionally, appreciate the 3 days that it was given to this and the record that was brought forward in it. And in that record, there was the objection filed by Heartland Township. And Heartland Township lays out Section 1656.30 about the details of food processing and an animal slaughter. And in that definition, it laid out, as staff described, 5 conditions. It says no animal slaughter may be located on a parcel within 500 feet of any residential district or residential structure. Nothing in the presentation of the documentation shows a residential structure or a residential district within 500 feet. In fact, the record does show that the closest residence, 1586 Nelson Road, is about 525 feet. And the applicant, the represented owner of that, endorsed that property application for use. It says that live animals may be held on the site, but no more for 24 hours. The same ordinance gives us direction and guidance for interpretation. Under Section 1605.10, it says that words defined as must and shall are mandatory. The term may is permissive. I do not benefit from a law degree, nor do I practice one on television, so I will leave others to determine how that will apply to the animals on that site. But it also states that all slaughtering processing is permitted only in an enclosed building, and nothing has been represented to us will occur otherwise. Also, the applicant, his experts, under oath, have stated that they intend to apply to all applicable federal, state, and county rules, and have not asked or presented consideration or waiver of those rules. And as I, in Algonquin Township and elsewhere, rely on and believe the satisfactory application of the McHenry County Health Ordinance, the building codes, and the regulations as this county has imposed on this property and others. There is also a question relative to the land uses of Heartland. Nelson Road is a county highway. That means that as a county highway, the county has deemed that the right-of-way should be 110 feet wide and is asking this applicant to donate 55 feet of that 110-foot right-of-way. To the west is Heartland Road. Heartland Road is a Class 2 highway designated by McHenry County. The average daily total on the roadway in front of the subject property has been published 6 years ago at over 2,000 cars on a daily basis. Between that property, there is the Union Pacific Railroad dual-track crossing, 58 miles from the point of the terminal to points further northwest. The applicant has also stated that they can exist with a standard residential sized well, and their consumption will be equivalent to that well. In terms of property jeopardy, the property owner of 15816 the road said that he did not believe that this will be harmful to his own home, being 525 feet away from this. And in terms of application overall, one of the documents came from a food preparation service that said that the particular applicant is certified for a unique type of preparation of food for dietary purposes. No other person has come forward with a representation on how that may be filled elsewhere for that purpose. And lastly, the subject of pens. Pens have existed documentary since 2012 on this property. For all those reasons and reasons as found in the public record, I believe the application has fulfilled the requirements to be granted a conditional use, and I'll be voting in favor of it as presented. Thank you.
Mr. Schnabel.
We've had quite a bit of dialogue to this point, which I hope everyone, whether they like some of it or not, will at least understand where it's coming from. I do want to say from the beginning, I somewhat sympathize with the objections raised by Heartland Township. There are certain enforcement mechanisms that this plant will have to undergo from government inspectors at various levels. I do believe that if there is a nuisance that arises, it should be taken care of. And I think overall, I'm in support of the petition at this point. Thank you.
Ms. Donner.
I'll make this very easy. I am not opposed to this petition.
Mr. Kernick.
Just a few comments. The chair at the beginning of this hearing and the continued hearings reminded everybody that this is a quasi-judicial hearing. What that means is this is similar to a judicial hearing. In court, generally, the fact finders are juries of our peers. We sit here, appointed by the county, sit here for minimal compensation, and we sit here as both the judge and the fact finders. We are drawn from the community. I'm from Grafton Township, and that is pretty much an urban township as well. I try to put aside whatever feelings I have towards this issue. We are sworn to apply the law. We are sworn to apply the law and reach our decisions without favoritism or prejudice. So that's essentially our role. I just would like to add a couple of comments to what everything has been said. First, the petitioner's reliance upon the Farm Nuisance Act is, in my view, a red herring. It doesn't give the petitioner the license to create a nuisance for existing homeowners. It applies, as the statute says, no farm or its appurtenances shall become a private or public nuisance because of any changed conditions to the surrounding property. So that, in my mind, is a red herring, and I agree with counsel for the township regarding its inapplicability. A large number of comments made by counsel for the township dealt with the requirement in our ordinance that livestock be on the property no more than 24 hours. Finally, under questions, a specific question from our chair, Ms. Kustra, she specifically asked the petitioner, are you and will you comply with the 24-hour requirement? He said under oath, yes. His prior testimony may have been a little bit ambiguous, but when the question was asked specifically, will you comply with that requirement? He said yes. And I'm willing to take him as his word, at his word, him being under oath. The idea that animals have to rest is based upon my research, specifically something that has to be taken into consideration at slaughterhouses. Animals, as I understand it, when they're confined to a truck over the road for a long period of time, they develop stress. Stress affects hormones and other stuff in the blood. I can't remember what really the literature said, but it did say that's legitimate, and he's willing to comply with the requirement and give the animals the opportunity to de-stress, for lack of a better word. The building, the testimony was that the building is going to be constructed something similar to buildings that would be generally found in agriculture, as I understand the testimony from their expert, from the designer. I was concerned about the water usage, but we did receive testimony concerning the amount of water that's being used at their operation where they currently slaughter their animals. That amount did not take into consideration, however, consumption of the livestock on the property itself. As I understand it, based upon my research, what I thought or saw was referred to as feeder sheep consume somewhere around 2 gallons a day. When you crank all the numbers, apparently I'm not speaking loud enough. I've got my hearing aids turned up, but I guess that affects my speech. The amount of water used at the property initially concerned me, but based upon the testimony that we received and my research, it's going to be about the equivalent of perhaps 5 or 6 single-family dwellings. My research, I ended up doing framing a query. It took me to the particular AI query took me to an EPA website called WaterSense. It says the average use of water for a 4-family residential property is around 400 gallons per day, 70% of which is used indoor. I can't imagine that they're going to be watering any grass or doing anything here. So when you crank all those numbers, that's why I come to the conclusion that the demand for water in this particular area will be enough for the well that they plan on having or that they have. Given all of that, and as I said, I agree with everything that my colleagues have said so far. One point I would like to make regarding traffic uses, I saw some of the people in the audience raising their eyebrow when I think there was a comment made by Mr. Cozen concerning 18 or 2,000 trips a day on these roads. That's what I specifically recall testimony from, and it was based upon both IDOT statistics and statistics from the McHenry County Department of Transportation as well. So I don't see that there's going to be any significant negative impact on traffic. So for all those reasons and what my colleagues have said, I'm in favor of the petition.
Okay, my comments. First of all, I would like to say that this request is for food processing with animal slaughter. Food processing in our ordinance is listed as an industrial use. It's allowed in a light industrial use. And also as a conditional use in the A1 district. Now, I'd like to just read from you the purpose of a conditional use and why we evaluate things on a one-on-one kind of basis for a conditional use. This ordinance divides the county into zoning districts where in each district the use of land and structures are substantially uniform. But it is recognized, however, that there are certain uses that, because of their unique characteristics, require individual consideration of the appropriateness of that use at a particular location. So here we are with a light industrial use of a food processing with animal slaughter in this location. So the purpose, the job of our board then is to decide, is this the appropriate use in this location? And so we have to look at all these standards. So I would just like to address some of these standards. And first, number one is the standard with the food processing with animal slaughter. And a lot has been talked about number two, live animals may be held on site no more than 24 hours. And I did ask the petitioner if they were willing to abide by our zoning ordinance, which states clearly that, and staff has also said that the conditional use is asked for on this property, not a building, but the property. So animals that come onto this property for the purpose of slaughter must be slaughtered within 24 hours. The petitioner told me that they were willing to do that. At the next hearing, their attorney says, well, now they were maybe confused. And he argues that no, this should be allowed. These animals should be able to stay there for days at a time before they're slaughtered. And only when they go into the building will they be under the 24-hour rule. And in fact, the new, what do I want to say? The map that they have given us is really just outlining the building for this conditional use, but their petition asks for this on the whole property. So I believe that they just continue to argue with our ordinance on whether this 24 hours, that they should even have to align with our ordinance. And I have to go back to even the attorney for the petitioner talking about animals needing to be able to rest, and he also raises farm animals. So because he must also, when he takes his animal to slaughter, he likes to take it the night before because he knows that those animals need to be slaughtered within 24 hours, but he takes it the night before so the animal can rest within the building, but is still slaughtered within 24 hours. So again, I say this 24-hour thing is on site, and they can rest for, 18 hours inside a building before they're slaughtered. But I am adamant that this 24 hours must be met, and I don't see any effort on the part of the petitioner that they intend to follow that rule. So I have a real problem with that. So I don't think that they are, they're demonstrating the ability to meet this standard in our ordinance under 16.56.030HH. Also, as a traffic engineer talked about, this is an industrial use. He said he compared the traffic studies for this to other industrial uses, in that this is a product that comes in, which is an animal, and it's processed, and there's a product that leaves this facility. So it is industrial. So we allow this as a conditional use in the A1 district to see, is it more of a large use? Is it a really like a small use in an A1 district that you could allow it? And I believe that when this has, it's not a mom and pop, it has 15 employees, They talked about in the last hearing date that they would like to add another shift if possible, which would make this even more intense, I should say, that I think this is a greater use than what should be allowed in an agricultural district. I think the vast majority is coming from outside the county and leaving the county. It's not like this is some small little mom and pop operation that's just dealing with animals that are living and being processed within this county. I believe this is a larger industrial use and belongs in an industrial area. I believe that it's great to have a processing plant like this in our county. You know, these animals are coming from out of state maybe, but they're serving an area of restaurants in Chicago, which we have a large population, but it shouldn't be in an agricultural district. I believe it belongs in an industrial district because of the intensity of it. It's not a small little mom and pop operation. So I believe that number 9, that this conditional use is reasonably in the interest of public welfare. I don't believe at this, located on this site, that this is reasonably in the interest of public welfare. As far as site number 2, or standard number 2, that this is so situated that the proposed use is compatible with the existing and planned future development of this area. If this was a little bitty, you know, processing plant that served the local population, I would agree that that might be true, but in this case it is not. It's animals being brought in from out of the county, out of the state, and going into Chicago. They're not being, it's not like a little store even here available for county uses. So I just don't believe that they've met the intent of our conditional use. I also think that it would be an enforcement nightmare from Anna to anyone in the planning department to go out to this property and determine what animal is a farming animal and what animal is there for animal processing. We should not be approving things in this county that is just an enforcement nightmare for our staff. And I think if we approve this, we would have that. So for all these reasons, I will be voting against this petition. So please, there's no applause. This is not a rally. This is a judicial hearing. So a vote aye is to approve this, and a vote nay is not to approve this. So I'll call for the vote. Mr. Eldridge?
Yes.
Ms. Gartner?
Please pass until somebody else.
Mr. Cozen?
Yes.
Mr. Schnabel?
Ms. Kustra summed up the arguments that I've had with myself over this for the last 2 meetings, so I will be voting no.
Ms. Donner?
Aye.
Mr. Kernick?
I would just like to make a comment. I think looking at whether or not the livestock comes in from outside the county and the product leaves the county takes too narrow of a view of public benefit. And having a company in the area does provide a benefit, no different, certainly on a larger scale, than all of the parts for a car coming into a county, all of the cars being shipped out of the county, yet there's a benefit to the county from having that business there. So I think that, and plus, as one of my colleagues pointed out, there is a service to the local 4-H and that. That said, my vote is yes.
Ms. Gartner?
Yes.
And I vote no, so this goes to the county with a 5-2 vote for approval. At this time, the hearing is closed.
Thank you for your time.